How much are you letting your own ego get in the way of your business and your future and your money and your success? Some of these limiting beliefs that you have to be the one to do all this work. It can only be done well if it is done by you. It has to be done in this exact certain way. It has to be done quickly and really great. Those sorts of things are holding you back. And you might have heard this, you might have thought about this. I know it took me many years to finally take action on the idea that I myself was the bottleneck, that I myself was sacrificing the time I could have spent for systematizing, the time I could have spent for the visionary big picture and the future and expanding and scaling a business and getting it ready to sell and getting a big payday and doing the socializing, the networking. All these things were being taken away, were being robbed of me by myself. I was being my own worst enemy by telling myself I had to do all the work, and I had all these excuses why I couldn't just jump forward and take action. And probably the biggest one was I told myself it had to be this drastic Grand Canyon that I jumped across. And I want to talk to you today about how to get some workers, how to get some employees doing the work in your business for you. Not all the work and not all at once, and just getting yourself on this path towards a real grown-up business, a business that actually sustains itself and makes money. And I didn't know for the longest amount of time that I was only supposed to take a little tiny piece of income out of the business. It's really easy for you to be a hobbyist or to practice a trade, and then the business is you, and you are the business. It's all commingled. It's all one thing, and it's a great way to make money, but you're building yourself a job. And the future for you needs to be in slowly replacing yourself one piece at a time until you have a business that makes money without you, because then that is a turnkey business that you can sell, or you could decide to not sell and just enjoy the benefits from. But how do you get there? You get there from having your own workers. And for the longest time, I lied about having employees. I would very regularly hire workers on Upwork and on Fiverr. And I did it on such a regular basis that I lied to myself and others, and I told myself that I had these employees because I had people that I'd go and pay every month to do some tasks for me. But hiring someone on Fiverr is not a real business. And here's why. Because there's nothing wrong with Fiverr or Fiverr workers, but their goal is to get in and out quickly. They want to have a job come in, they want to get paid, they want their requirements, they want to do the work, and then they want to get paid for the work and just be done with it. And I didn't really click with this until I was hiring more and more graphics designers to create things like social graphics, to create book covers. And every sort of industry or every job has its own best practices. And many times when you hire a graphics designer, graphic artist on a freelance site, they say they offer unlimited revisions, which sounds great. It's one of those things where it takes the buying hesitancy away, because I say, if I pay someone and I don't like it, maybe I'm stuck with it, and they say, no, unlimited revisions. We'll keep on revising it until it's done. And so I said, great. And so I hired someone on Fiverr to create a couple of book covers, and the first ones came out great. And then when it came time to hire for book cover number 4, number 5, it wasn't so great. I was put on the back burner, and I said, hey, how about this unlimited revisions? Can you fix it? And they would take a day and fix it, but it still wasn't what I wanted. I would say, can we do it again? And then it would take another day, and it would just, every time it felt like it took longer, and the revision was just worse until I eventually just gave up. It felt like it was more time and effort and energy and focus remembering this one job, and things were going late, and just going back and forth with this Fiverr worker. I was putting in just more time than if I had done it myself. And that is one of many unfortunate realities when it comes to hiring this specific person for this specific job. There's just the lay of the land. And so I finally got to the point where I was getting so much graphics and so much writing done that I finally needed to hire someone to work on this with me. And 2 really helpful, important mentors got me there. One is John Jonas from OnlineJobs.ph. That's where I get my workers. And the other person that was extremely helpful as far as the onboarding and the interviewing especially was Nathan Hirsch from outsourceschool.com. And so what happened was instead of hiring someone for $50 here and $100 there, which ended up adding into up to thousands of dollars anyway, I went and I said, I'm spending the money anyway. Why not pay someone who is full-time? And I tried the part-time thing. I tried hiring someone for 10 hours a week, 20 hours a week, but I always found myself fighting for their attention. And I had a few false starts, and you probably had false starts when you hire people. And then so false start number 3 or 4, it finally began working because I hired someone full-time, 40 hours a week, with the understanding that they would not be working for anyone else, either online or offline. I was their only employer. That way they could have that focus, and that way that they could do the work for me. And it was a little scary, and maybe it's even scary you thinking about this, because when you hire someone full-time, 40 hours a week, what does that mean? It means, first of all, you have to set aside a certain amount of money for them. That's one thing. Thing number 2 is that in order for them to be more justifiable or profitable, they should make you more money than you pay in. And maybe not on month 1 or 2, but they should in some way free up $400 worth of time or profit or something. And there's a really easy calculation you can do is you look at the amount of money, say you're a solopreneur. How much money are you making in your business this past year? And how many hours did you put into your business this past year? And you divide the money by the hours, and then you have your hourly rate, and you can play around with that and say, do I do that from the top number or the bottom number after expenses? And that might be a blow to your ego. And then you look at, okay, if I'm making $50 an hour, $100 an hour on these tasks, then if I'm hiring someone for $4 or $5 per hour, then am I making money with that? And if you hire someone for $5 an hour, is it really $5 an hour? Not exactly, because there's a little bit of attention that takes away from you in order to manage them, but for sure not 100%. So if they're putting in 8 hours per day, maybe you need to focus maybe 15 minutes or 30 minutes per day, just guiding them, monitoring, checking their work, and knowing that all these things are not forever, right? Because you can eventually hire someone to manage that person and hire a whole team. And it's all about thinking towards the future. And then problem number 3, which is one of those problems where a lot of people don't even talk about, is giving your virtual assistant, your worker, your employee, what you want to call them, enough work to fill the time, right? If someone is working for you for 8 hours per day, then you need to give them 8 hours of work to do to fill up that time, but you also can't overwork them, right? You can't have them be writing 8 hours a day nonstop. Say you hire an article writer, you might be paying them maybe 2 hours per day exactly writing articles, and then an hour per day like answering emails, an hour per day responding to social media comments, an hour per day doing research, and maybe even 1 or 2 hours of just something really easy like learning for you or watching a YouTube video or something. But you have to navigate all these things, giving them enough work, but not so much that they quit on you. And so you guarantee them 40 hours per week of work, which for you ends up being about $400 or $500 per month, because you do have to set aside 10% of what you pay them for something called the 13th month pay. So that means that, for example, if you're paying your virtual assistant $500 per month for an entire year, then at the end of the year, according to the law in the Philippines, you have to give them an additional $500 because that's like their end of year Christmas bonus. And there's an HR department at this point. Even if you hire one person, you have to think about, I need to hire the person, I need to onboard them and get them used to my tools and my process. I need to make sure it's a nice place to work and chat with them and ask them how life is and how the family is mom sick and how's that going? And then maybe give them a little bonus during the summer or the winter, like give them like $50, $100, $150. And then even something more advanced is consider like some kind of like a performance bonus. So if they do something that ends up with you like acquiring a client or making a big ticket sale, maybe throw them a little bit of a percentage of that if they helped you to do that. So there's a lot to think about, and you just figure it out as you go. But the big things are that they don't work for anyone else. They work for a specific 8-hour time slot. And I would say that you choose it. You choose it in your own like American time zone. So if you say you want your worker to work East Coast time zone from 8 a.m. from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., right? So daytime for you, nighttime for them, and you just set what your term should be. And I think that having the actual exact work hours set and to have the work hours ideally be when you're awake is really important. And then to set them up in what's called Slack. So Slack is like a chat room if you've used things like Skype. But with Slack, it's like your own private chat room for work. And it's a little awkward at first, but not too bad. You just create a workspace, and then you have a general chat room, and then you just put them in there and you invite them via their email address. They join, and then they can just send you messages in there. And the reason why you're setting things up right there in Slack is because if you're emailing each other, it's not instant, and you end up juggling just like dozens of emails, and you end up with all these threads going. Slack is way better. It's just one singular chat. You can share files in it. And the most useful part of it is you tell them to clock in and clock out when they sit down to work for you. And you make sure that starting work with you at 9 a.m. means the laptop is already powered up. It's not a matter of 9 a.m. I get out of bed and stretch, and I hit the power button on the laptop and wait for it to start up, and I get a cup of coffee. No, 9 a.m. means they are in that Slack chat room. They say hello, and they get to their tasks. And then, speaking of tasks, we set them up in a tool called Asana, which is free. So Slack is free, Asana is free. And Asana, again, there's so many different menus and things to figure out, but the bottom line of that is you say, I have this task that I want done. And a task means it has a title, and it has a description, and it has a button of, is it complete or not? And there are extra things like you can categorize it or attach files, but basically a task is title, description, and then complete or not. And then you assign it to the worker, right? So it has their name attached to it, and then it has a due date such as today. And so if you were hiring someone for 8 hours per day, you would give them ideally 8 different tasks, right? And ideally a 1-hour task. So a task might be just like, learn about this, watch a video about that, create me an article outline on this subject, write the first 200 words of your blog post on this, and just be, especially at first, be generous about what can be done in a focused hour, and don't overwork your worker, especially at the beginning. Give them enough of just like wiggle room. So that way, just be reasonable, right? In an hour, can someone write 20 or can someone write 200 words? Of course they can. And so you also, as far as expectations, so I'm listing out a few expectations here, right? We're saying to don't work for anyone else, clock in and out, message on Slack, check off the tasks that are assigned in Asana, make them promise that if they get stuck, to never disappear, and to always ask you for help. And this is the number one most important thing for them to agree to. And I mentioned my mentors for this kind of hiring from the Philippines, John Jonas, and this is like his number one piece of advice, okay? If Dave Ramsey told you to get out of debt, and that's his only piece of advice, and if Grant Cardone's only advice is to rent lots of apartments, then John Jonas's one piece of advice is tell your worker and get them agree to not disappear if they get stuck, because they're used to mean bosses, right? Basically the cliche in the Philippines is they live remote, they live like outside of the city, and they take many buses and maybe like a boat or something to the city, to a cramped call center where the boss is really mean. And they've tried working from home, from the home where there's 5 or 6 family members there, and they go to these freelance sites, and they find Americans that hire them, and the Americans are so mean and frustrated with them. So it's up to you to be the best boss they've ever had, and to be very nice and understanding, starting with this mutual understanding that if they get stuck, then they will ask you for help. Now, who do you hire? You hire a general virtual assistant who does not have a lot of advanced skills, because this way you're dealing with a clean slate. I would say that especially if you're making your first or second or third hire and you're just looking for administrative tasks like outreach for sales appointments or for creating content, things like that, I would not hire an existing content writer. I would hire a general virtual assistant, and I would even be fine if the words, the writing they come out with is worse or slower paced, if it's consistent and steady, and if I can break them in and teach them how to do things my way and the way that I would like it to be done. They should be willing to learn any software that is required, and clearly don't get them to figure out like advanced video editing or image software if they don't have those skills. But things like WordPress and Google Docs and just like navigating websites like social media, that should be expected. And that's something that you probably could get someone to figure out. And make sure that they tell you and promise that they have a fast and stable internet connection, and they should know how to run an internet speed test and send you the screenshot just to show that the connection is fast enough. And so we mentioned John Jonas from OnlineJobs.ph. You join this site, and it is $69 per month, but you just join it when you need someone. So it's free, and then if you say, I need a new hire, you pay $69, and then during those 30 days is when you're hiring someone. And you can literally hire someone and then stop paying, and then it might be a few more months, and you pay the 1 month again, and you go and hire. So you basically just pay when you need it. So it's $69 a month, but once you hire someone, they're yours. And it's not the situation where the platform doesn't take any ownership of the workers. It's just a way for you to find someone, and then you can stop paying and take the money and run, and then now you have your own employee. And so what you do is you go into OnlineJobs.ph and you maybe look at the existing workers that are there to get a feel, and you make a job posting just with your requirements, with these things that we're mentioning, where you say, I need someone to, and you maybe think of like your top 3 tasks, and make sure they're not too advanced. Like you don't want someone to do everything in your business, but if you want someone to be a content writer, say I'm looking for a content writer who maybe doesn't have a lot of like advanced writing skills, but knows fluent English and knows WordPress and Google Docs and knows how to use LinkedIn. And I might have you log into some of my social media accounts and post these written articles and log into my WordPress blog. And I expect you to work for me for 40 hours per week, and I can guarantee you 40 hours per week. Don't work for anyone else. I'll give you 12 paid vacation days per year plus Filipino holidays. And I want you to clock in and out via messaging and promise that you will never disappear. And then what you do is you post this job posting, and then your inbox will come in with people just applying. And you say in the job posting to give me your email address. That way I can invite you to my Slack workspace. And don't worry at all about what the job replies even say. Just get them to give you that email address. And then you go over to your Slack workspace and you enter the email address in, and it will send an invitation for Slack, and they will join it. And if they can't figure out that step, then they're disqualified. But if they can join your Slack workspace, and when I do this, especially in the evening, these come in like within the hour. Within the hour, I'm getting like 20 or 30 replies, and I enter them all in Slack, and then suddenly I'm talking to 10 people at once. And then we just do this job interview, and we go through these steps that I just mentioned. We say, are you okay with the job description? And can you figure out the software and the hours and clocking in and out and promising not to disappear? And do you have a fast and stable internet? Can you figure out the software like WordPress and Google Docs? Are you okay with the rate of pay? And it's important also that they reply like very quickly, that they reply to this chat within a few minutes, because you don't want someone who is multitasking or working on other stuff or slow internet. You just want someone that's very quickly. And at any point, if they say, no, I don't have fast internet, or no, I don't know these skills, and just say, okay, we'll move on. And it's just a first come, first serve basis. And so you hire someone, and you try them out for a week or two, and then you pause the job description and you hire the person. And sometimes I've hired someone and after a few days it didn't work out, and then we try again, that's okay, but it doesn't happen that often. And then the next challenge then is to ask, like, when can you work? And when they are ready to start work, they clock in, you add them to your Asana system, you assign a few different tasks, and this is a fun opportunity for you to learn how to record screen capture videos. So I use this tool right now called obsproject.com. You can click the record button, it records an MP4 file, and then you can just create an Asana task and attach the file, and there you go. There's a video of you doing it. And if you prefer to, if you're like, put it on Dropbox or Vimeo or YouTube kind of person, whatever, just find a way to record a video for them. Loom.com is probably the easiest solution, right? You click a button, it records right in your browser, but you create 8 1-hour tasks for them. And I would make one of those tasks, one of those hourly tasks during the day to be like, watch this YouTube or watch that YouTube or find a YouTube video about this. And then just give me 3 to 5 bullet points about what you've learned. And then as this person grows with you and you figure out better ways to use them, you're going to figure out some very helpful tasks, like have them manage your email, have them generate YouTube videos for you. And the most exciting, or I guess sustainable way of using your employee or worker is to get a client, right? If you can have monthly clients who pay you for things like video production, and maybe you need to go and hire specifically a video person on OnlineJobs, or you get someone to have you do content or have you do social media for them, all these kind of like low wage recurring tasks. And there are companies, marketers, entrepreneurs out there who know how to do these things, right? They know how to write articles and post to all the social platforms, but they're not doing these things consistently. And if you hire a team, if you hire workers, then you can put them to work consistently. And by the way, in Asana, you can set what are called recurring tasks. So you can say, for every day this week, I want you to look up news articles in the Turlock area and make 3 blog posts reporting on things that happened around here. And then just by setting up a recurring task like that and giving them a WordPress login and a couple of, maybe a 3-minute video of instructions on which news sites to look at, now you have, on a recurring basis, a local news site. And so at the moment, I have 9 full-time employees that have been with me for the past 3 years, and probably 16 employees forever. Now, what do I use them for? I put them to use, and I've trained them over many years to set up and run and manage your podcast for you. And so my website is dfypodcast.com. And because we practice what we preach, and we do these things like setting them up in a Slack channel, then you are welcome for you and your virtual assistant and whoever else is on your team to join our Slack channel and then coordinate. And so now you're creating this business that does not have to run with you. And then you can focus on the important things, such as showing up on podcasts, recording videos, meeting people, networking, being on these sort of Zoom calls where you record and where you're an expert on other shows and you have experts on your show. And I would love to speak with you about this. So my website is dfypodcast.com. And it's been lovely speaking with you about the ups and downs and the joys of building a team, creating a business that is structured, systematized, and slowly over time relies less and less on you, especially just like the dirty work, right? The grunt daily work that has to be done. That way you can get back to what you thought this entrepreneurial dream was all about, which is big picture, which is next steps, which is the just managing your team and doing the next task, working on the future and not the present or the past. So dfypodcast.com, Robert Plank. Let's talk about your podcast very soon.